video, I'd like to talk about the addition of a fourth axis on a three-axis milling machine. So our example machine is in our shop here at Lincoln Tech. This is a standard three-axis vertical milling machine with the addition of a fourth axis on the table. All right, what we were referring to as a fourth axis is a rotational axis. So this is a device that can rotate in degrees and can be positioned on the machine to rotate your workpiece around any of the existing axes. So the orientation that we see on the machine here today is a rotation around the x-axis. So our workpiece would be held in the device and rotated around the x-axis. Right, so this same device could be turned and used to rotate around the y-axis, or even stood up to rotate around the z-axis. All right, and used in any of those configurations. So this is an accessory, all right, that can be added to a standard three-axis milling machine. Now, there is some internal wiring on the machine that needs to be ready for a machine to be able to accept a fourth axis. All right? Once the machine is wired and capable of operating fourth axis, then it becomes an easy job to connect the axis and go about using it. So we're just going to take a quick look at how this is fastened to our machine and how we go about implementing the axis on a machine that's been wired to be fourth axis capable. So if we take a look inside the machine, we can see our axis is bolted with some T-studs down through the table. So we can mount it that way and align it to our axis, and we can even use the flange on the back here to mount it vertically and use it as a rotational axis that way. So pretty straightforward how it gets mounted. This particular axis accepts a 5C collet. So it's got a lever here to open and close the collet, and it's got a knob to release the collet in the back. I'm just going to take the collet out. You can see this is a standard 5C collet, similar to what would be used on a lathe. Very common collet in a machine shop. So it makes for a pretty versatile indexer. So the mounting the collet, pretty straightforward. Through here, tightened with the draw bar on the back, open and close with the lever. Now this same indexer can also accept a 3-jaw chuck or even a faceplate, all right, on this the spindle thread that's on the end here. And there's a protective plastic cover that goes over that. All right, so quite a few different accessories that can be mounted to the indexer. The indexer can be used in various different positions on the table. All right, so to install this on the machine, we need to connect it both for power and for the control in the back of the machine. So let's take a look now at where the connections are on the back of our milling machine. Here on the back of the machine, we can see several different connection points for various different accessories. All right, on this machine, we have two cables labeled for the A-axis. All right, now traditionally the axis letter orientation would correspond with the axis that it's aligned with. So an A-axis is generally rotating around the x-axis, or a B-axis would rotate around the y-axis, the C-axis around the z-axis, and so forth. But on the connection for the machine, they consider the A-axis to be the first rotary axis. All right, so regardless of which position we install that axis on the table, it's still going to see it as an A-axis because it's the first rotary axis on this machine. So When the machine is powered down, this machine has been pre-wired to accept the fourth axis, so the outlets are open here and available. The machine to be powered down, we connect these axes. When we power this machine up, our control will now display the additional A axis. So if we take a look at our positions here on our control display, we can see we have our X, our Y, and our Z axis, and now we have an additional A axis. All right, so that's going to read in degrees of rotation. So that enables us to not only position our tool in any of our standard 3 axes, but also to rotate our workpiece in degrees. And that could easily be done in a line of G code just by calling out a position along that A axis. So if we have an A axis in a 0 degree position, and then on the next line we call 90-degree rotation, it's going to rotate our piece 90 degrees, and then we can continue on the machining program. So it gives us a lot more versatility in our positioning of our workpiece for machining. All right, so that's the basic layout of the fourth axis on the machine and the steps that we go through to install it. Thank you for watching the video today, and I will see you in the next video.